Hi there, welcome back. This is episode 4 of Accidental Counsellor. My name is Jenny Richardson and my husband Scott and I own a country pub, about 6 hours northwest of Sydney. This is my story about how I became an accidental counsellor in a small country pub in a small country town. Before I get started on this episode, I would like people to understand just how important pubs are in towns like Coonamble. Like many country pubs, our pub is the hub of the town. If you want directions, need to borrow a tool, need a lift, need help with paperwork, love advice, medical help, or just need a cold beer, we're here. I call myself an accidental counsellor, but really, everyone who sits around the bar are counsellors. Some of my guys, as I like to call them, have been mates for years. They know all of the good times, all of the bad and sad times, and all the wins and losses that make up a life. And of course, what they don't know, they make up. Just yesterday, I was sitting at the bar with my guys, and one of them, my old mate Boro, said he had a sore ear. I suggested getting a face washer and poking it in one side and out the other, which started everyone throwing in their ideas to remedy an earache. These included things like pouring peroxide, a yabby pump, a vacuum cleaner, and a hairdryer. Boro told me today that his ear is much better, but he didn't actually tell me which remedy he decided on. There are so many stories about these men, I don't know where to start. A huge tapestry of businessmen, shearers, drovers, plumbers, electricians, builders, nurses, truck drivers, farmers, tilers, shop owners, musicians, mechanics, you name it. You name the trade, we have at least one of them. I feel like I've gotten a bit off track with the topic of my podcast, but these men need to be recognised and their stories told. One of my all-time favourite memories is about Narren. He would roll in, usually already a few beers deep, tell everyone what he thought of them in no uncertain terms, drink a few beers, devour whatever snacks were on the bar, always complaining that they needed more salt. Then he'd head back home. Narren was a larger-than-life fellow with the biggest hands I have ever seen on a man. My guys tell me he was a bronc rider back in his day. He could break in horses like nobody else, with numbers in the hundreds being broken in the 3-month period. I think this might be a record, and if it isn't, probably should be. Narren asked me one day if I liked sheep brains. I think he expected me to say no, but I said yes I do, and the next day he brought me in a container of carefully laid out, still warm brains. He then stood there while I ate every single one of them. After he'd gone, I asked my guys if I should have eaten them, as I had no idea what his kitchen was like. They all insisted it was safe, as his kitchen was one of the cleanest in town. Narren passed away a while ago now. He was found by his grandson, tucked up in his bed after dying during the night. Probably exactly the way he would have liked to have gone. I miss Narren with his colourful use of words and his brains. Last episode we talked about ghosts, a sad soul, and a couple of our local native animals. I'm going to start episode 4 talking about a word that I had never said before coming here, hated hearing someone else say it, and never even really knew what it meant. I think it is one of the most despicable words in the English language, but it's very commonly used here, at the bar, and in this town. The word is the C word. I'm sure you know which word I mean. My customers use it as a term of endearment, an adjective, a noun, and a verb. It can be a very good thing or a very bad thing. For example, he's a good C, he's a nasty C, he's the biggest C, this is a C of a place, and g'day, C. I mentioned Narren earlier in this episode. He was an absolute C-word champion. He could use the C word 12 times in an 11-word sentence. The men say it loud, proud, and often when sitting at the bar. Sometimes I have to ask them to tone it down a bit if we have travellers having a drink, and I honestly think that sometimes they don't even know that they're saying it. The C word is usually used by men and never used by my staff when they are working behind my bar. Some men hate the word, but they most definitely hate it when a woman uses it. My friend Terry recently found himself in a bit of trouble after going DUI one weekend after leaving a mate's place. He had his licence taken away from him immediately and a court date arranged. Terry knew straight away that he'd done the wrong thing and was very aware of what could have happened if he hadn't been pulled over. Terry drives a small truck doing deliveries every day for a local business, and his job was in jeopardy without a licence. Terry had not had a driving infringement for a good 50 years, and his solicitor was pretty confident he could get him a good outcome. To help with this, Terry had to do an online course called the Traffic Offenders Rehabilitation Program, TORP for short. Terry came in one day and asked if I could help him. You see, Terry doesn't have a computer and struggles to read and comprehend some things. Terry is a very clever man. He did his apprenticeship here in Coonamble in a bread shop many years ago. He's a huge help to other people in town, cutting grass, pruning and other odd jobs. He's a real gem of a man, funny little fellow. Anyway, I assured him that we could do it on my computer, and within a few days it was done and dusted, and we both passed with flying colours. The day before Terry was due to appear in court, he told me that he would ring me the next day. "Jen, you'll be the first one I ring, I promise." I watched the clock all day and nearly jumped out of my skin when the phone rang. Terry had indeed been given a good behaviour bond and a fine, but he was able to keep his licence and therefore his job. Terry has changed his ideas on drink driving and assures us he will never do it again. I think I need a shingle out the front of the pub that says Accidental Counsellor is on duty. I've commented several times about getting a book of numbered tickets and handing them out as I walk through the bar so I can sit at a table and call out "Number 7" to the next in line for advice. Before I came out here, I didn't even know how to turn on an iPhone, let alone work out why it wasn't ringing. Before the internet, you could only gamble by going to a government betting agency or at the track. Coonamble had several SP bookies, one right here at the Bucking Bull Hotel. There was a dedicated room with blacked out windows with a lot of phone lines coming in. Remnants of these are still there today. I didn't even know what they were. Story has it that there would be several people working in that room answering phones and taking bets away from view. Rumour has it that at the time the local police sergeant always won the last horse race of the day. Was this to allow this to keep operating? In 2020, mice came to town. It was incredible and I have never seen anything like it. I had actually thought that when it started, what's a couple of mice? Within a week, I was changing traps every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day. We had to close down our accommodation because as soon as I'd make up a room, there would be mouse poo on the beds. Every single item in the kitchen was put away every night into the big cool room. Everything, every single thing, every night. Every day before service, we would have to do a thorough clean because there was mouse poo everywhere. It was actually a real nightmare. A young fellow in town came up with an idea. He made a frame about the size of a shoebox and covered it in very small chicken wire. He had a little funnel in the top. Every night before we went to bed, the trap was loaded with a piece of cheese. Every few hours, the trap would be filled to capacity with mice. That was fine. That was one problem solved. We had the mice caught, but they were live mice. Then we had to work out what we were going to do with them. A plastic bucket and a brick was the answer. The trap would be lowered down into the water and the brick placed on top, and after a few minutes, all the mice would be dead. Empty them out and fill it again every few hours. We sat at the bar one day and watched a mouse chew into a plastic container that held some potato chips. It took him about 15 minutes to chew through solid plastic. These mice were unrelentless. Everywhere you went round town smelt of either dead mouse or mouse poo. The supermarkets were in big trouble. Everything was being placed in plastic containers. One morning I walked into the local supermarket and the mice had chewed across all the Tetra packs of the long life milk, and there was just milk everywhere, all over the floor. One of our older customers said, it'll be fine. As soon as it starts to turn cold, these mice will disappear. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. I think these mice are here to stay. They were probably here for about 3 months, and then they just disappeared. After the mice came crickets, which weren't quite as bad as mice. And then there were the frogs. But that's another story. Thanks for listening to The Accidental Counsellor. See you next time.